Hi, this is Wolf Phototech, coming directly to you to the power of the internet, and this video will be about the next evolution in PlayStation systems. And my co-host is Mr. Piercy. He's not a happy cat. I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce. He was going to co-host, but apparently he decided to just up and leave. This video, as I said, is all about that looks so messed up in the video. About the next evolution of the PlayStation platform. Now, all these are terms people have attached to the next step in PlayStation. And I will tell you, these are actually pretty misleading. The first one is what people think of, the first thing. Now, PlayStation 4.5. Now, I personally kind of like it. I kind of like the PlayStation 4K name. But to be all fair, the basic logic behind the PlayStation 4.5 moniker is that it is a halfway step between the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, which is not true. And I will explain. And then the PlayStation 4K moniker, which rolls right off the tongue. I'm going to leave that right up here. So I have something white in photo. But the PlayStation 4K moniker focuses on the 4K feature, which the system will most likely do 4K video, but according to all analyses by specs, that is probably what it can do, and the best it could do with video games is fake the 4K in games by upscaling. Not true 4K, but it's just stretching things a little. And then the next one, the PlayStation 4 Neo, comes from the actual code name of the system. Apparently, the code name within Sony is codename Neo, which is referencing Morpheus, or Project Morpheus, which is known as the PlayStation VR. So apparently they are really loving the Matrix, and I'm not the first person to point that one out, but seriously, that's the case. And I am telling you that these are incorrect. In various interviews, it turns out that, first and foremost, this has been generally known for a few years now, for some time, not a few years, but for some time now, and I almost wanted to say a few years. I think it was just last year or recently, but it was indicated, but it was kind of overlooked. And then recently, Yoshida, the CEO president of Sony, mentioned when it was brought up to him that that Sony is looking towards more of an incremental evolution as opposed to big leaps. And to be all fair, I understand that. And many articles have been talking about bring up Genkai, Sony's streaming service, PlayStation Now, and the PlayStation Store, and the PlayStation integration into TV sets. And Sony is generally diffusing their PlayStation brand into other things because it's largely what makes the money. And Sony is focusing more now on PlayStation mobile games. Please note that PlayStation Mobile has been around for a long time. In fact, Sony pretty much tried that basically at the tail end of the PlayStation PSP, or the Sony PSP, because I realized PlayStation PSP is redundant. Uh, hey, my co-host is back. But anyways, this is probably more accurate. And I will explain why. First and foremost, as we all know, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are largely highly modified PCs in custom boxes. They are x86 architecture on their main CPU, and their GPU is an ADM. For all intensive purposes, they are PCs. And quite simply, much like PCs, in theory, the games could be programmed to scale to the hardware. The developers would have to include such features to scale. And this may actually be the true future of the PlayStation brand. Now, shifting it from PlayStation 4.5 to 4.05 indicates that this is merely just the beginning of something. Those commercials of the PlayStation 6, of the PlayStation 9, are pushed way out into the future. There will be quite potentially PlayStation 4.05, then a PlayStation 4.1, and a PlayStation 4.15. And this will continue forward until there's an inherent sudden movement in hardware technology, or technology in general, that overwrites a great deal of the build up, and then we will get the PlayStation 5. So, as the pattern starts to appear, the PlayStation 4 should be, if I'm not very good with math, but should be 3 years old this coming fall holiday, So there's indicated by Yoshida a small increment over small periods of time, potentially an upgraded version every 3 years. Kind of alluded to that. So this coming year, we will get a new version of the PlayStation 4, and another 2.5 or 3 years later, we will get a better version of the PlayStation 4 with faster CPUs and GPUs and more RAM, more speed, faster, bigger bandwidth in RAM, faster RAM, maybe a little more RAM. And then another 3 years after that, we will get a better version of the PlayStation 4, and another 2 to 3 years after that, we will get another better version of the PlayStation 4. And this will continue onward until there's a break in the point where it doesn't inherently work. And for all those people who went out there, and I've got in arguments with them on various websites, of them basically going and, I'm buying a PlayStation 4. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go buy a $400 hard drive to double my capacity and make it run faster. And then I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go do that. And then there's people who went out and got a 2 terabyte drive or a 3 terabyte drive, and then they got an SSD. They got instead an SSD, terabyte. Sorry, I'm just jumping, just jumping off. And these people they bought the system for like around 400, and then they spent another 400 or $1,000 upgrading the hard drive because it runs out of space. And they only went and did this to perfect their PlayStation 4, and now Sony is releasing a new version. And I'm quite sure they could probably take those hard drives and transfer the content over to the new PlayStation 4, but that's going to take time, and so there. Uh, there is a strong indication that the PlayStation 4 could quite end up being sorry about my question mark. So please tell me your thoughts. Sorry I rambled off, but I'm quite serious about this. This could potentially be micro generation after micro generation, micro generation after micro generation, and micro generation after 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 micro generation on a 2.5 to 3 year cycle. Do not forget to leave your thoughts, vote, share, add to playlist, and please consider subscribing. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening, or day, or week, month, year. You get the drift.